Hello, welcome back. Hopefully Monday's video and worksheet went well and that you ever graph the points. We're going to take that a little step further and we're going to analyze what the graphs look like and look at some actual data on how we can put this into graphs and what that means and how we can read graphs. That's kind of what we're going to be looking at today. It's very important that you're able to analyze a graph and look at it, look at the titles, look at the numbers, see what it means. That's something that's going to go up until your senior year in high school, and you're really going to use that ACT, which I don't know if any of you know what the ACT is if you don't have an older sibling, but a very important concept. So let's look at the parts of the graph, okay? So notice this graph over here. It has a title. It has levels on the x-axis and the y-axis. Those are very important to kind of know what's being talked about. Even without me telling you that I told you this information right here, gold bars you collect at each level of video game. Just looking at the graph, I know that it has something to do with a video game. I may not know the name of the video game, but I know there's a video game. I know that the x-axis is the number of levels, so I can look at that and say, okay, there's either 6 levels in this game, or I've gotten through 6 levels, stuff like that. So this, 1 through 6 here kind of tell me the labels in the games. And then I look at my y-axis. My y-axis says gold bars collected. So this is telling me that collecting the gold bars is something that I'm going to be looking at. And from 0 to 45. So it looks like I probably don't get above 45 gold bars in each level. So somewhere between 0 and 45. That's where this graph title and the axis labels really help you understand looking at a graph, and you can look at the labels and say, okay, so what is this going to look like? What am I looking at? So kind of making sense and analyzing the actual graphs. Okay, so let's look at the data that goes with this graph. So I told you that it was a video game. You had levels and you were collecting gold bars. So right here I've got my 6 levels and I've got the number of gold bars. So this is put into a chart, but this would be like me saying that level 1, getting 25 gold bars, is going to be my X and my Y. Now the levels are on my X-axis, so these are going to be my X's. The gold bars collected is on my y-axis, so these are going to be my y's. So when I go to graph this, graphing this first number is the same as graphing 125, graphing that ordered pair. But even if you don't know that, just look at the graph itself. Level 1, so I'm at level 1 right here, and then I get 25 gold bars. Well, the gold bars are on the y-axis, so I'm here. Go over to level 1, and then I would go up to 25. So that's where I'm going to put my point, at the point 125 as my ordered pair, or just look at it and say, okay, I got to go to level 1, I got to go up to 25. Level 2, I go over to level 2, and then I go up to 40, and I put a dot right there. Okay, level 3, I go up to 45, and I put a dot right there. Level 4, now I got 0 gold bars, was not my best level, obviously, but I can't just leave it blank. Just because I got 0 doesn't mean I'll leave it blank, because then if somebody's looking at it, they're going, well, how many did they get? Did they leave it out? Did they not play level 4? What happened? So I have to put that 0 in there to represent that. So I go over to level 4, go up, I got 0. So that needs to be part of the graph. That's an important piece of data. Level 5, I go up to 40. Preferably right on the cross. And then level 6, I go to level 15, or get 15 gold bars. So I go level 6, 15 gold bars. So there's my graph. That's the graph that I have of my data. Now the actual question that's being asked is, in how many levels do you collect more than 30 gold bars? So 30 gold bars is right here. So in how many different levels did I get more than 30 gold bars? Well, yes, you can come over here and look and go, okay, 1, 2, 3. That's one way to look at it. Or you can say 1, 2, 3. You can do it by the chart. You can do it by the graph. Sometimes you're given the graph and not the chart. And so you got to be able to read that and make sense of that. So my actual answer, make sure you read what question's being asked. So my actual answer here would be 3. Okay. Here's another one. shows the amount of snow that falls each day for 7 days. Show how you can use ordered pairs in the coordinate plane to represent this information and explain. So the graph is on the next page. I want to kind of talk about what this data means. So these are your days, okay? And then on day 1, you had 2 inches. On day 2, you had 4 inches. Day 3, you had 6 inches. So that's kind of how to read the chart. Now, when we go to the graph, we're going to look and see which is our X, which is our Y, and kind of go from there. It's not automatic. A lot of times the X is the first one, but it's not automatic of which way it is. Okay. The music in the background. Okay, so here's my data up at the top, and then here's my graph over here. So if you look at the graph, notice the title, amounts of snowfall. Okay, that describes what's going on with my graph. And then my days are at the bottom, so that means that my days are going to, and then the amount, the inches, is my y-axis. And so that means that these numbers are going to be the y-axis. Okay, so we're going to use that and we're going to graph this information. So erase that, make my thing bigger. And on day 1, so I have day 1 down here, how many inches did I get? I got 2 inches. Now notice this is going up by 2 every time. 2, 4, 6, 8. So up to 16 inches of snow is available on my graph. And if you're actually making the graph yourself, you need to look at your numbers and make sure that your numbers make sense, that you make it big enough and do all that, but we're not doing that today. So on day 1, I got 2 inches. So I would go 1 and then to 2 inches. Day 2, I got 4 inches. So I go over to 2 and then I go up to 4 inches. On day 3, I got 6 inches. So I go to day 3 up 6. Day 4, I also got 6 inches. So that's going to go. On day 5, I got 8 inches. Right there. In day 6, I got 10 inches. And then day 7, I got 14 inches. Okay, so there's my graph. So when I look at this graph, I kind of see, okay, as my days are going, I'm getting more and more snowfall. And I can see that it's increasing as I go. So then my question says on day 8, 1 inch of snow falls. Okay, so that's not taking the trend of our graph there, but it's okay. How can you represent this information on the coordinate plane? So where would I put day 8 of having 1 inch of snowfall? Well, it just adds on to my chart. So I have day 8 and I have 1 inch. So in my graph, I would do 8 and then I need to go up to 1. Well, I don't have a 1 on my graph, but where is 1? It's between 0 and 2. And so I would do 8, oops, and I would go between, hopefully if my pen will work, okay, there we go. And I would go between 0 and 2 because 1 is halfway between 0 and 2. So even if my number's not exactly on there, I put it where it should go, kind of like on a number line, how you put them close to 0 or close to 1. Okay. This table shows the water levels of a portion of a river during a flood, and it wants you to graph the data. Okay, so same thing here. I've got this information in a graph. It's up, up and down instead of sideways like we did, but same thing. I got 1 hour, the level was 5 feet. After 2 hours, the level was 8 feet. After 3 hours, the level was 10 feet. 4, and so on and so on and so on. You kind of see that the data is going up and then it starts going back down. So we need to graph this. So notice on our graph, we've got water levels during the flood. That's our title. My x-axis is the time in hours. So this is going to be my x. And then my y-axis is the actual water level. So this is my y. Okay, so look and see where all your stuff is. So after 1 hour, I got 5 feet of water. So this is 1 hour and 5 feet of water. So that's where I need to go to put my dot. So 1 and then up 5. After 2 hours, I have 8 feet of water. So I go over to 2 and I go up to 8. After 3 hours, I have 10 feet of water. So 3 and then 10. Not 9.9. I'm struggling here. Okay, after 4 hours, I have 11 feet of rain, of water. And after 5 hours, it starts going down. I go to 7. right there. And then after 6 hours, I have 5 feet of water. Okay. So there's my data on a graph. And so you can kind of see it going up and then coming down. I've got all my points on there. So then the question asks, what does the 0.57 represent? So 57 is right here. So what does that represent? Well, that represents that after 5 hours, I have 7 feet of water. Okay, that's all that means. You know what your X is, you know what your Y is. You can look at the graph and make sense of that as well. A second question is, after how many hours was the water the highest? So you can look at the graph and look at your highest point, which is here, okay, this number right here. Or you could look at the graph and say, okay, where's my highest number? Or look at the chart, sorry. Either one's gonna give you the answer. Some people like the number chart, some people like the graph. But then it wants to know after how many hours. So what goes with the 11? So the 4 goes with the 11. So after 4 hours, we have the highest amount of water. And then how many feet did the water rise from 1 hour to 4 hours? So at 1 hour, we're at 5, and 4 hours, we're at 11. So how far did the water rise from there? It rose from 5 to 11. So it rose 6 feet. Okay, so being able to look at these tables and graphs and make sense of them and be able to analyze that and look at the graphs and pick the numbers out, look at the charts, pick the numbers out. It's very important. Okay, so your assignment is the worksheets numbers 15 through 20. It actually went to a 3rd page just because of all the graphs and charts being on there. Or you can do it in the workbook. It's on page 591, numbers 2 and 3, and then 593, numbers 1 through 4. So it's actually only 6 questions, but like I said, they have the graph to them. And then I have Zoom tutoring Thursday from 3 to 4 and Friday from 10 to 11. And if you need me or have any questions, come see me.